So hopefully you can't tell by the look on my face that I've just deleted the previous 7 attempts at doing this. Let's try again, make it fresh. So this is something that's been on my mind for a while. You know, when you start writing a novel, you inevitably... I don't want to make this about you. Let me just say my experience. When I started working on novels, I searched all over the place for information about how to do it right, how to make this novel not suck, and how to get to the finish line. I read books on writing. I watched videos, documentaries, read essays, read interviews from other writers. You try to figure out the secret to how to do this. And there's a lot of important elements to writing a novel, like how to structure it, how to get the voice right, the dialogue, the point of view, the themes, all that crap. And there's tons of information out there. This isn't going to be one of those kind of videos. I wanted to talk about some of the fuzzier skills that I really didn't think about until I got a little bit down the road with writing novels. Now, before I do that, I just want to mention one big thing is, it takes a ton of work, like more work than you think it's going to take. And even if you know it's going to be hard, it's going to end up being harder than what you thought. Anyway, so we're going to assume that we all know that, put that to the side. The first really big insight for me was that I can't do this without community. That is, whether it's the writing group, a few trusted friends, some people who are willing to read a draft of my novel. I really needed people who would look at what I'm doing and give me honest feedback and who want me to succeed. You know, I don't want just critique for the sake of critique, and I don't want someone to say it's awesome when it's not awesome. I'm talking about like honest, useful feedback from people who get what you're trying to do. The need to have that community, that people can give that to me and I can give that back to them. I could not write a single book without that for sure. Like I just need that loop, because if I'm just in my attic the whole time, which is a dream of mine, but it's not actually possible. It's hard to fit some of the good food through the bottom of that door. The support of a community is essential from my perspective. Okay, did I mention it's a shit ton of work? Okay, we already said that. Okay, it's a lot of work. The other thing I think that's necessary is humility. Like this idea that you don't necessarily know how to do this. For me, every project is a new project with new things to learn. And so I always am cautious never to think that I know what's going on. I remember one writer in a writing group I was in many years ago, where whenever somebody in the group would say something like, well, I was very confused here. Like I didn't really understand what they were doing. He would always have the answer of like, yeah, I wanted you to feel that right there. And he kept using that explanation. And it took me a while because he is very persuasive. And so my first instinct was, oh, he really knows what's going on. And someday I'll be smart enough to understand his writing. Years later, I realized he's just unable to take in any feedback. Like there were problems. That book was confusing. You know, sometimes you get bad feedback and you need to ignore it. And that is an important part of this. And knowing when and how to ignore feedback is important. But the ability to allow for the fact that you are screwing up a scene or a section, or you don't understand how something works, that is super important. Just to allow for the fact that you don't know what you're doing all of the time. It seems obvious when I say it, but I've seen a lot of writers in writing groups where they just can't take in stuff. And it's one thing not to be able to take it in at first. You know, like when I remember when my first book with my publisher took my first book, and the editor there gave me feedback that the ending was bad. And I was thinking, you know, like what, the last page, 2 pages, 5 pages, last chapter? And he's like, no, the last 100 pages of this 220 page book is messed up and you have to rewrite it. I was angry and pissed off and disheartened and depressed for a week. But then I got back up and realized, okay, maybe he's got a point. Maybe even if it's not exactly the way he framed it, there's something I need to work on in this area. That was so key. Anyway, okay, so we talked about community, humility. I keep mentioning it's a shit ton of work. It's still a shit ton of work. Now, the last quality I kind of want to talk about was reflection. The ability to reflect on what you're up to and where it's working and not working was really important. Just to stare at this scene and figure out like, This person said they were confused. This person said there wasn't enough conflict. This person said they didn't like that the shirt was blue. Now let me think about all that feedback and look at this scene and see if there's something missing. It may even be different than all pieces of feedback, but to stare and look and reflect on what I have on the page and whether it needs to change, that's something I have to keep reminding myself to do. And it's hard because it's not easy to kind of step outside of your headspace and think through how others might be taking in your storytelling. Anyway, I don't know if this whole video is way too fuzzy about the fuzzy secrets to writing a novel, but to me, these were the things that maybe people didn't overtly tell me when I started studying this stuff, like community, humility, and the ability to reflect on things. That was kind of just as important as any other storytelling advice or help or insight that I got, because these qualities allow me to keep kind of circling back, getting feedback, taking it in, accepting it, taking it in, looking at what I've got, readjusting, seeing where it's at, and kind of you do that on repeat for some number of months or years, and then you'll eventually have a book. Because I'm so brilliant at knowing that I suck.